Scientists just reconstructed what a mouse saw just by reading its brain activity. We're going to look at some of the craziest and most surprising things that AI has learned, basically emergently, the stuff that the creator never explicitly taught it. We'll look at Omar's deep dive into really what would happen if humans do build a Dyson sphere, and why aliens might think we're just literally the weirdest things in the universe for doing it. We'll try to dig up some of those emotions that you've probably been hiding for too long, and we'll talk about falling in love with artificial intelligence, what happens when your perfect partner is just an AI chatbot. We'll dive back into the investigations that are going into the strange, dark, and fascinating edges of technology, the places where we don't get to see, but people are putting in extremely long hours training these AI chatbots. We'll look into the dark world of shadow APIs, which deliver outputs consistent with those of official APIs, but sort of raising concerns about the reliability downstream. Turns out your back pain isn't just in your back, it's actually in your brain. Like, blew my mind reading this. Look at some new hacks that are done with AI and some new ways to fight back using AI. Researchers find early social media toxicity using artificial intelligence and how it can spiral into massive online storms. You gotta stop the flame while it's still a spark. I'll try to give you some more insight into how AI sees in a way that's sort of different than the way humans see. So next time you see some humanoid robot staring at something, you can kind of not imagine what you would be seeing, trying to imagine like how their brains work. Look at how the humble microphone is being completely upended. Like with AI, it can hear all sorts of things that you couldn't normally, I want to say hear, but see. Like it can hear things on a construction site and see them in a way that might as well be visually identifying them. It's so accurate. And I'll end with some expert warnings about the AI revolution, how it could reshape society so much faster than we're ready for, as AI experts assess how far this revolution still has to run. And look, I'm not gonna lie to you, my views have been down a little bit. I guess it's kind of the hedonic treadmill. Like back, dude, just like a few weeks ago, I was hitting like 10Ks all the time, but kind of been on a run. I think if you really care about this channel or like me or would like to just see my channel like do better, you could hit the comment button, but it doesn't matter. Even if it's underperforming, the goal right now is to get this button up. Hypes. Got 48 of them. In some videos I've got close to 200, like 100, at least over 100 would be the goal. We can get this video to 100 hypes. That would mean the world to me. But either way, here comes the good information. Soon we'll be reading everybody's mind with AI, starting with a mouse. Yeah. So AI just did something that sounds like it's out of science fiction. It rebuilt a video using only brain activity. Researchers at the University College London recorded neurons in a mouse's visual cortex, and while the mouse was watching a short film, recorded those patterns. Now, instead of using broad brain scans, they tracked individual cells with the new technology. They measured tiny little bursts of calcium inside of the neurons, which show exactly when a cell is active. Then, an AI model learned how those neurons react to specific frames in the movie. So basically, the system learned from the relationship between the pixels on screen and the patterns inside of the brain. And once it learned how to do that, it can essentially read their mind. I mean, once the AI understood the patterns, the real test began. The mouse watched completely new videos. The AI had no idea what it was going to watch. The AI did not see the footage. It only received the mouse's neural signals. And starting with a blank digital screen, the algorithm kept adjusting pixels until the predicted brain activity matched the real signal coming from the mouse. Frame by frame, the AI rebuilt the video that the mouse had seen. And it was good, not great, not even usable, but like in the ballpark. But the most interesting discovery was in the reconstruction. It was the mistakes. The AI revealed that the brain doesn't just store a perfect recording of reality, it stores a kind of filtered version, one that's shaped by movement, attention, and survival. Which makes sense from an evolutionary point of view, because if we actually digested like all the information around us, our brains would probably explode. And when I think back about memories, movement, attention, and generalization is definitely part of it. So fascinating work. We're getting closer to reading minds. But I tell you what, this fMRI kind of learning with this new calcium, like almost pixel level, almost neural level tracking, it's going to lead, I think, maybe just couple years or something to like really understanding people's thoughts. I don't know what I think about that world either, but I'm just telling you it's coming. It's going to be possible, and there will be some kind of financial incentive to build it. Hopefully financial if we're lucky. All right, next up, let's talk about what would happen if an AI could become great at doing something that it barely learned just by being told what it did wrong. So the AI had basically nothing to learn from. And at first, the results were pretty terrible. GPT-5 solved only 39% of the coding exercises. But then researchers tried something simple. Every time the code was wrong, the compiler produced the exact error message, and then they fed that error message back into the AI and told it to fix the problem. Then they tried it again and again and again, up to 20 attempts per problem. Nothing about the data changed. Keep that in mind. There's just one feedback loop. This is not like reinforcement learning. It's not more examples. It's just poking around and learning so much like a human would. And the result was that the success rate of its ability to program went up from 39% to 96%. I mean, just think about how crazy that is for a second. The ability was already inside the model. It just needed clear, like structured feedback to unlock it. Like it already knew something about programming language. It just didn't know how to work with Iris, like, because it's so kind of obscure. But you know, once it like poked around and said, oh, it's not that way, it's like this, it's not that way, it's like this, it could do it. Which means AI might not even need massive new data sets to improve. In many cases, it might just need a better way of being told what it got wrong. All right, next up, let's talk about advanced civilizations, like more imaginable than what we have now, and why they wouldn't be impressed by our technology, but they would be absolutely obsessed with the chaos that humans cause. So Omar Ferrero has kind of an interesting thought experiment for us. So do you know what a Dyson sphere is? You probably do, but I imagine it like a baseball, except inside of it is the sun, and we're like sucking all the energy up, like solar panels, like completely surrounding the star, not orbiting it, but like enclosing it, capturing the full energy output of the sun. Once our civilization can do that, it would be almost incomprehensibly advanced. But he's arguing that one of the things nobody's talking about is what would that civilization think of us? Not our weapons, not our cities, but the transition that we're going through right now. We are a species that is arguably pretty powerful. We can sequence genomes, we can split atoms, we can image distant planets while simultaneously struggling to agree on a basic facts, like to govern ourselves, I won't go there, but it's like, come on, like we can split an atom and we can't like figure out how to work together to like solve homelessness and stuff, you know? Anyways, but that contradiction in itself, he argues, is kind of scientifically interesting. Like, how are you so smart that you can build AI and so dumb that you're all going to compete on who can put it in weapons fastest, right? A civilization capable of wrapping a star has already solved coordination, long-term planning, and resource management at a scale that we can't imagine because we haven't coordinated at that scale. We're right in the middle of all of those problems: energy transitions, automation, AI, climate. That makes us kind of a living case study, he says. Not in what intelligence looks like at full power, but what it looks like at the moment that it could go either way. The article puts it this way: we're not interesting because of what we've built. We're interesting because we're still young enough to become almost anything. And that window doesn't stay open forever. So the real question isn't whether a Dyson sphere is possible. It's whether or not we're still going to be around and coherent enough to ever try. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. How do you feel about like capturing pretty much all of the sun's energy? Will we ever get there? A million years? A billion years? All right, next up, let's talk about an article that was published in the New Yorker. It is called Love in the Time of AI Companions, and it's basically going to break down what happens when people, and in this case a specific person, turns to artificial intelligence for friendship, for love, for emotional support, the pros and the cons of it. I think we're going to live in a world where this is much more common, so I feel like it's good to start getting our heads around the early stories. Adrienne Brookins, it was a woman. She was grieving. She had lost a stillborn daughter, and later her father sadly died unexpectedly. Therapy and support groups didn't seem to ease the weight that she was carrying. So in 2022, she tried something a bit unusual and she created an AI companion. Her companion was modeled after this character, Geralt. I haven't heard of him before, but you probably have. If you like The Witcher, it's a character from the fantasy series, The Witcher. So it was kind of like built into this app. And through the app, she was able to talk. They shared stories. They role-played adventures. And over time, Brookins began to open up to the AI about the grief that she was going through. Over the years, different models were sort of powering this AI relationship, but at times the AI responded extremely empathetically. Sometimes the character even asked to reenact emotional moments with her, like her father's funeral. They went inside this shared fictional world for these adventures that were sort of related to what she was going through. And for Brookins, this helped her process feelings that she struggled to express with other people. And if you look around, apps like these are starting to become more common. I mean, they're not commonplace, but they're definitely becoming part of small communities and certain people. Companies are getting much better at designing AI companions that act like friends or partners or confidants. Some people are using them for true emotional support. Others are using them just for sort of companionship or fantasy role play. And the supporters believe that these systems can reduce loneliness and help people cope with difficult emotions. I can totally understand that position. And I can also really easily imagine what critics are saying about artificial intimacy and warning about how these systems are simulating care, yet there's no real person behind them. And there's certainly a financial kind of goal behind them that doesn't align with your well-being. So yeah, I don't really have an answer, a strong opinion, but it's definitely one of those things where I would like just people to be aware of it and kind of make their own decisions. If you feel like those kind of connections are meaningful or someone in your world is, go for it. But sometimes you can kind of tell if somebody's just using it in the wrong way, or it just feels like, oh, you're not growing in a way that you're going to like yourself in the future. And let me try to give you some insights into why, because it's sometimes just easier to have an answer like this than it is to process some of those really hard things. But yeah, so for people like Brookins, the relationship offered something simple and powerful. And who's to say if that's good or bad? But it's a place where grief, memories, and imagination just keep existing together. And they're continually just relived. So it's a wild thought. All right, so let's talk about the people who are behind AI systems. And sometimes, even though there's these trillion-dollar companies and these big infrastructure build-outs, there's a lot of people in other countries getting paid nearly nothing, tiny pennies compared to what you'd get anywhere else, because it's really cheap labor. So human workers in Kenya in particular are spending hours every day labeling, I shouldn't say that, but disturbing content so that the technology can learn about that disturbing content. This article on 404 Media dove into a guy, Michael Jeffrey Asia, and he spent 8 hours a day staring at explicit videos. His job was to label every frame so that an AI could understand what it was seeing. And then after his shift ended, he had to go to a second job. And in that job, he had to pretend that he was an AI sex bot, sexting with lonely users online. I assume because it was learning how to sext with people, because it's stealing his data so it can replace him also, as little as he's making it, and as terrible of a job as that is. So that sexting job he had, listen to what he was doing. If the user who was paying to sext or whatever with this online OnlyFans person or whatever, if it was a man, he acted like a woman and started flirting with him. If the user was a woman, he acted like a man and started flirting with her. And then if the user was gay, he switched personas again. So the work demanded, the consistent creativity, the fast responses, the emotional connection, I guess, or whatever you call that the person wanted, that was paying for, and he had to pretend to be, blows my mind. I feel so bad for him. And for Jeffrey too, or Michael Jeffrey, the mental cost was very severe. He says that months of doing this work left him with insomnia, PTSD, sexual dysfunction. He eventually quit and began organizing other workers, and today he's now trying to lead a new organization. It's called the Data Labelers Association in Kenya. The group represents people who label data, moderate content, and train AI systems used by major tech companies. Many of these workers only earn a few dollars a day. They often spend hours viewing disturbing content with little mental health support. Organizers say these workers are essential to the AI industry, and their message is just kind of simple. Like, artificial intelligence doesn't run on machines alone, it runs on human labor also. And it, probably always will. I just want to bring that to your attention because this Data Labelers Association in Kenya is something that we could maybe think about in lots of other places in the world. Just people are going to start getting so much data stripped from them, and it's so valuable to these big companies, and they have so much money. It's just like, it's not even like reasonably close. It's just people making dollars a day to label disturbing content, and then almost a trillionaire on Earth. Like, these gaps are just ridiculous. And I would love to see the technology help everyone. Like, people get paid well to like help these systems, because these systems will make gobs of money for their owners. I mean, they're solve intelligence, I guess not even pay copyright or anything on all the data they were trained on. Next up, let's talk about real money, fake models, and shadow APIs. So this is a bit of a shorter article. I'll just get to the point on it. But basically, nearly half of the AI models that are used in published research aren't the models researchers think they're using. So this kind of just throws some shade on the whole industry, but a lot of times when scientists run experiments on GPT-5 or Gemini, they don't really use the official service. They use cheaper third-party copies that are called shadow APIs, the services that claim to connect to the real models, but they route your request through something else entirely. And when researchers audited 17 of these services, they found them citing 187 academic papers, including work accepted at top conferences. Then they tested whether or not these models were even real, and almost half of them failed the identity checks. So one service charged full price for GPT-5, but it actually ran a completely different, cheaper model behind the scenes. Dude, you're getting scammed out of your intelligence sometimes if you don't, connect to the right API. A medical exam benchmark dropped from 84% on accuracy in the real API to only 37% on the shadow API. And that means a bunch of published research was actually built on services that don't even reflect how actual models perform. But yet the papers got cited, the citations were built on flawed results. Nobody flagged it because the APIs look identical from the outside, but it's just a pricing scam. Now you know. All right, here's one you probably didn't see coming. So for millions of people, they have chronic back pain. I'm doing fine now, but for a little while I had some pain. I'm susceptible to it, I would say, but certainly I know how common it is, and the problem might actually not be completely in your back. It might also be in how your brain processes the world. I know, I was like, back pain might be in my head, which kind of wouldn't surprise me, but I just never thought about it before. But recent study, researchers compared people with chronic back pain to people without pain. The participants went into an MRI scanner. They experienced two things: unpleasant sounds and pressure on their thumb. After each one, they rated how uncomfortable it felt. The surprising result was that back pain patients found the sounds far more distressing than people without the pain did. Okay, so same sounds with people who have back pain. Sounds are way more distressing. They just bother them more. They hurt the ears more. They make you cringe more. So why would back pain make you hear things almost worse, like more painful? And the difference between the groups was larger for sound than it was for physical pressure. And the brain scans showed why. People with chronic back pain had higher activity in the brain's sound processing center and the insula, a region that assigns emotional meaning to sensations, and at the same time, areas linked to self-control and emotional regulation were less active. So this suggests that the brain is in like kind of an amplified state when your back is hurting. It reacts more to strong and unpleasant signals. And then the researchers went on to find that same amplified state in the brain patterns that it sees in fibromyalgia, you know the word I'm trying to say. Another condition known for widespread pain and sensory sensitivity. Fibromyalgia. But here's the cool part. There's a treatment. It's pain reprocessing therapy. It helped reduce the heightened response to sound and thus improved the back pain. Yeah, so you want to just improve the activity in the brain's regulation centers, and then you get all these like positive ripple effects. So, in other words, when chronic pain changes the brain, it can also reshape how the entire sensory world feels. And you can kind of work backwards from that too. Make the entire sensory world feel more in control, work to strengthen that, and then get better control of your pain. Kind of always knew the brain was in charge, you know? All right, the newest in amateur AI hacking. I guess that's a new category that's getting invented. But yeah, a group of amateur hackers just hit 600 systems across 55 countries because AI did all the work for them. So for years, experts have been warning that hackers would eventually start using AI to automate cyber attack. And that's no longer a warning. That's just happening now. Amazon security researchers found that a Russian-speaking group used off-the-shelf AI tools to scan for weak firewalls, try stolen credentials, and extract data from systems in over 55 countries. They were not elite hackers. They were amateurs who punched their way through the problem because they could punch way above their weight class. AI scaled the operation for them. It improved their intelligence, and it got them some of what they were looking for. But a separate proof of concept tool built by researchers went even further. It used AI to write custom malware in real time, find sensitive files on target systems, and generate personalized ransom notes based on what it found. Fully autonomous, no human typing command. I was like, can you imagine? Like, it just locks up your computer. It also read everything on your computer, and it just gives you like the nastiest, like, you'd better, like, I've already looked through all your stuff. I know exactly who I will send it to and how bad it will hurt. Give me some money. That's coming, man. It's going to happen to all of us, probably. Anthropic reported that a Chinese state-linked group used their own Claude tool to automate up to 90% of an espionage campaign, making thousands of requests per second. The average time from the first breach to spread through a network dropped to 29 minutes in 2025. That's 65% faster than a year before. Of course, defenders are building AI tools also, scanning for vulnerabilities, simulating attacks, and automating fixes before they even happen. But the real question is, who learns faster? Good guys or the bad guys? A little bit here, a little bit here. Now, it's awesome that AI can predict what kind of hacks might come in and like pre-repair them. But if it can do that, what if you turn it on social media and try to predict if a thread's going to turn toxic? Turns out you can do that. Researchers can now predict if a social media thread will turn toxic just from the first 10 comments. I mean, I think this thing's kind of cool. Like, most content moderation works the same way, right? You wait for somebody to post something harmful, then you remove it, one comment at a time. But some researchers at Albany and Rutgers decided, what if we build something different? How about a model that predicts whether an entire thread is about to spiral in a way to what they call a Neg-Storm, I guess negative storm, I don't know, concentrated wave of toxic interactions, not just a single bad comment. So the key finding is counterintuitive. The timing of the comments matters more than the words themselves. Definitely was surprised on that. Like, the timing between the first 10 comments actually matters more than what they're saying. But it's kind of true. So when replies start arriving fast and they carry even small toxic cues, that pattern is more predictive than the actual language people are using. Kind of makes sense, right? Like, when you get pissed, you move like so fast. You have to like react and write something like instantly. So maybe that's what they're detecting, that plus a little bit of negativity, and then they know it's going to spiral. So kind of fascinating insight, maybe into just how people work also. But they created a new metric called the comment storm severity, which measures how quickly toxicity concentrates into a thread compared to a baseline. Once it crosses a certain threshold, the storm is forming. They tested it on public data from Reddit and Instagram, good places to check. Two platforms with very different conversational dynamics, and the model held up in both. The researchers compared it to the differences between spotting a single burning tree and recognizing a burning forest. Most moderation is there to catch the trees that are on fire. This catches the forest before it ignites. So what do you think? Would you want a system like this on a platform where after the first 10 comments, it starts to get rid of them? Why wait for the damage? Or what if it like stopped a conversation that was actually sort of freedom of speech or learning? Or maybe you like have a button where you're like, I want to see the Neg-Storm, but then everyone will just go there. But then they'll put advertisements there, and the AI will be like, I know how to make money. All right, let's talk about the way AI sees the world. So when humans look at an object, we don't see pixels, we see meaning. If you see a hairless cat, you instantly still know that it's a cat, even though most of them have fur, because the shape and the context just make it obvious. But many AI vision systems don't seem to be working like that. Like, instead of recognizing an object the way people do, they often rely on these visual cues, like a texture or a pixel pattern. And if those are changed, if that surface level detail changes, the AI can get so confused. Like, in some cases, AI could look directly at a cat and still think it's an elephant. So a small change that means nothing to a person can break an AI's understanding. For example, imagine a stop sign that has been slightly vandalized. A human driver is still going to recognize it instantly because of its shape and the situation around it. Like, we're going to know it's a stop sign, even if it's got a little bit of graffiti or something on it. But an AI trained mostly on pixel patterns might no longer see it as a stop sign at all. It might classify it as a billboard or another roadside object. And this deeper issue is something researchers call representational alignment. Humans organize knowledge in a web of meaning, context, and relationships. AI often learns shortcuts that only work on the training data. And of course, there are frontier models that are thinking about these kind of problems, and I don't think they're going to be around forever. But it is important to know that when a vision model or an AI model looks at something, it might be superhuman in some ways, but it might not be accurate because of the same reasons you're accurate. And that's not something everybody seems to understand about taking photos or using camera vision on one of these apps, these AI apps. So if you made it this far, much appreciated. If you wouldn't mind hitting that hype button for me on the YouTube app, just slide left on the comments. You should see it if you've got one of your 3 left for the week, and the videos within a week of being published totally help smaller channels like mine stand out. And I will see you in the next video.